Should have been more prepared for this, I think, huh? Look at all that headspace there. Oh my God. Let me tell you. All right, here we go again. I really hope this comes out. Good evening and welcome to DarkHour Paranormal. I'm your host, Michael Roser. And tonight we're going to be covering a couple different topics, but delving pretty heavily into something I haven't really visited for quite some time. And I do appreciate everyone joining. I see we have someone in here. Say hello. Very well, maybe Rick from Rick's Realm. We'll go ahead and try to angle up a little bit, get some of that headspace. Okay, cool. All right, there we go. That's better. I think we're in view now. All right, folks, ready to go. All right. So I'd like to begin this evening by talking about an ancient symbol that I'm sure you've seen. Maybe you know what it is. Maybe you never researched into what the symbol means. That is the flower of life symbol, which I have right here. Okay. The significance of this symbol, a lot of people attribute the symbol to creation. Having embodied all of creation in this one symbol, I mean, you have all harmonics, you have mathematical equations that can be found inside this. And the way that it's actually formed is reflective of how life begins, right in the womb. So this is a very interesting symbol, and the way I came across it. Hey, Rick, how's it going? Nice to see you here tonight. Thanks for joining. I think Rick's going to be calling in a little while, but we'll give him a few moments here, and we're going to get set up ourselves. That being said, the way I came across this symbol was in 1990. I want to say it was like 96. Let's say 95, 96. I came across a guy named Drunvalo Melchizedek. Now, I know I'm probably not saying that name correctly. I think it's Drunvalo Melchizedek. I'm not 100% sure. But this guy was doing a course on something he called the Merkaba. Now, what the Merkaba was or is a sacred geometry that's in your auric field. And you can use this geometry to bring yourself into a different state of awareness, bring yourself enlightenment, and possibly, with the eventuality being ascension. Very powerful stuff here. Very powerful stuff. When he started talking about this back then, it wasn't commonplace to speak on, even in any sort of paranormal forums. It wasn't something people talked about. People mentioned sacred geometry, of course. They understood some principles, but this guy Trinvalo really helped bring a lot of light to this math and the chemistry and everything that's behind what he presented with the symbol. Of course, when you talk about this symbol, you have to talk about other symbols that, of course, can be found in there. You talk about the tree of life, which I don't have a photo of at the moment, but I'm sure I can find one for you before the show is out. So, I mean, I'm kind of overwhelmed here with how much I want to say about this. So I apologize if this seems a little choppy at the moment, but we're getting there. Seems to be the theme. So this Merkaba that I was mentioning, there are two tetrahedrons opposite each other, and the point is either pointing down. The majority point is pointing downwards towards the earth, or it's pointing upwards towards the heaven, based on whether you're masculine, feminine energy, and so forth. This is what it looks like. All right. And this is obviously a 2D perspective of it, but when you're thinking about this energetically, these are third dimensional geometries. Now, the idea with the Merkaba meditation that he either came up with or was guided or inspired to work with uh, was to kind of crack the age on these tetrahedrons in the sense that we've forgotten about them in our consciousness many years ago. And this is ancient knowledge, spiritual knowledge that is still inside, but it's just buried very deeply. And through the meditation, he would help people to actually crack these things and get them to move again within their field. The significance to that is that they're now taking in prana from both of the poles, and as a result, they didn't have to. Well, purportedly, they didn't have to eat as much. They didn't need as much sleep. Sort of balanced out a lot of the physical aspects, that life is for them. Now, of course, that also on the more fantastic end, you talk about what else you can do with this, and that is, with some sort of mastery, you can actually teleport from place to place physically. Now, from my understanding, the design is not necessarily for um, interdimensional travel. I guess it's possible, but there's a lot on the side of love that you need to understand and learn, again, from what I understand, to a point where you're almost a master at it. So I think this particular geometry was used for literally moving around the third dimension and possibly some of the harmonics in it, but not much further, later on. Very, very interesting. Now, the reason I have this book here, as I had mentioned, he used to teach a course in this. There's two books that encompass everything he was teaching in those classes. He'll never teach the course again. It's not something that he needs to do or was instructed. I mean, he claims that he was very guided to do the majority of this. And a way a lot of information kind of fell into his hands was by accident. For example, he actually started looking into this symbol as a result of a photographer friend who was down in Egypt taking some pictures on one of the walls of the Great Pyramid. And he just happened to notice the symbol there and say, to himself, what the hell is that? And he started researching it. And then it gets a little bit crazier because, he starts talking about angels that had, come to him and your, higher entities that have come to him and given him symbols to say, hey, go figure that out. And some of them took him a very long time and quite some interesting adventures, finding out what these symbols were and how they eventually all came together. Busy background on YouTube. Look at that. Oh, yeah, buddy. Oh, yeah. I mean, can't go wrong. Again, Montauk is right over there. You can actually see Little Gull Island Lighthouse from where I am. If you have a pair of binoculars, you can see it. But Montauk is not far off. Pretty cool, huh? Not a better place to do a show. Unfortunately, this won't last. I'm going to be in this location for another week here, and then I got to go back home and pretty much put together a studio to do this. And that's kind of what I've been waiting for folks to really get into this show and get it off. But that'll be happening towards the end of this week here. Rick, if you're interested, I'd like to have you on. I'm going to call you in. Now, I brought this up. We can talk about this, or we can talk about anything else you got on your mind in terms of the paranormal or otherwise. I'm going to give you a shout, though. See if you're around. Folks, hang tight for me for just a moment. All right, let's give Rick's Realm a ring. Are you there, Rick?
I am
here. Hey, there he is, folks. How you doing tonight?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Couldn't be better. I mean, you see the background, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, sort of a side note. I'll tell you something I did today. I was out on the beach with the kids, and there are all these beds of mussels that have begun to grow, and some of them are getting big enough that you could take them if you wanted to. I think they got to be about 1.6 inches, to make these things. And of course, when you're on the ocean or you're in the bay, you're going to find what people call these snails. They're little
Yeah.
snails, and they're actually called periwinkles. Now, my entire life I've been here.
Oh yeah.
I've been coming down here. You use them for crabbing, or you throw them in the water or whatever. They're always there. I didn't know you could eat them. So you know what I did? I ate some. I'm still alive. Yeah, gathered a handful of them. I wasn't sure how it was going to be, and I brought them up to the house, and I boiled them for about 8-9 minutes with garlic salt and a little pepper. And yeah, now the funny thing is, when you take these things out, yeah, they're a lot of work, and I probably wouldn't do this, a lot. But you have to get like an ice pick, and you take the snail out, and there's this little film on the top. It's like a cap. I forget the name for it. But this sort of kind of flakes off. You pull that off, then you stick the little guy who's still wrapped up in the shell, and you pull him out, and it's long. It's like a lizard's tail. It's very strange looking and kind of off-putting, but they're tasty.
Well, now you can say you've done it, and it's a food source that you know of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to do it again tomorrow in greater quantity and use some real garlic in there and see what that is.
You don't have any lobsters crawling around in that down there or anything?
Yeah, listen, I've had my share of those already this past couple of weeks here that we've gone through, but
Oh, I can imagine. You just dip your hand out the window there and grab one.
That's all, pretty much, man. But yeah, so that's
Can you
what I
jump
did
out
today.
that window into the ocean? Like, am I looking at just the ocean right behind you?
I mean, no, there's a bit of grass down here and some
A
stone,
little
but
ledge.
I could literally take 4 or 5 steps out here and I'm in the water. So
Yeah, it looks like you're in the ocean. Like, that goes right up to the window. It's great.
oh yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
There you go.
You get a nice view of the sky, and if you had a UFO fly in, we could fly. This is beautiful.
Well, this is one of the
Great
places I saw a UFO. Was right out this way towards the Groton base. That's where I saw the first one that I mentioned to you. I think on one of your shows.
Yes. Wow.
Perfect place for it.
That's cool.
We had a black helicopter fly over yesterday, middle of the day. It was so close to the ground, I probably could have thrown a stone and hit the thing. It was I don't know what it was doing, but it circled up and went back up this way. Unmarked black helicopter.
They're doing something because really unmarked.
I didn't see any markings. Maybe there was something there I didn't see it, but I was close enough to.
Yeah, I mean, it would stick out. It would,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's happening down here.
Radar you go. Sure. You got a lot of things going on down there, huh?
Oh yeah. And I didn't realize that Race Rock Lighthouse, which is right there on the Sound as well, I know it well, was actually on Ghost Adventures. It was season 1, episode 4, I think. And I'm sure I'd seen it, but didn't realize that, I knew that lighthouse. I knew exactly where it was. I've been on its banks before, when I was a kid fishing. Really cool. Really cool. I guess it's pretty haunted out there, too.
Oh, wow. Maybe we should go out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I would love to spend the night in the lighthouse. Haunted or not, I think it would be a fascinating experience. But if there are ghosts, all the better, I guess. We do investigation.
I wanted to mention, since we're on talking about going to places, New Hampshire just recently opened up again. Stuff started open. I'm not sure which phase they're in, and if that American Stonehenge would be open yet. But it's definitely something we got to look into now that the weather's great. Just go up there for the day. Maybe we can't do live streams on YouTube from our phone yet until you have a certain amount of subscribers. But we can record the whole thing and then have a show where we play it back and talk about it like that.
Yeah, we could do that. We could edit in some of the B-roll and what have you and talk about that. Absolutely. That would be great.
Yep. You just play it, have a whole, or even break it down into a few episodes or just, I don't know. Sure. I'm not good at editing, so it takes a long time. So I don't want to.
No, it's really cool that we have all these different landmarks around us that, historically have seen so much action, and now, people have associated the paranormal with them, and they're literally in our backyard. We're very fortunate.
It's crazy
in that respect. I mean, you think you find
what's the
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you can find haunted places, obviously every state and every country, but there's some really popular ones around here. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont.
Right. I was watching. You love this guy, Jeff Belanger.
Yes. I do.
That guy is such a wealth of knowledge for he has a little series I found on Amazon from about 15 years ago. It's a couple seasons, but
I think I remember that.
Yeah, he goes in and does like little quick things at each place, but he goes into the history, and it's really cool.
It was it just urban legends or something like that with Jeff Belanger? I can't remember.
New England legends, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him doing that actually. I mean, he's done. One of the great things about Jeff is that he's a very well-known face in this community. He's always present, at these functions and speeches and stuff like that. He's always in attendance, and he's very accessible in that respect. I've never met him personally. I imagine one day I will.
Yeah.
But I do hear great things about the guy, and again, he's always there, and he is a wealth of knowledge.
And he's one of the originals who was out there ghost hunting and all that stuff. Back then.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he knew Ed and Lorraine Warren when they were around too. I didn't know Lorraine had passed away a year or so ago. I didn't know that, and I should have. I have folks in my circle of friends that knew her personally. I didn't catch that somehow.
Oh wow!
All the greats,
I didn't know that either.
All the greats are expending their time and they're passing on. And now it's up to us to take up that work again where they left off, and hopefully do it more justice too.
That's right. That's all you can do.
Yeah. So, do you have any topics you wanted to discuss tonight? Anything on your mind? Bigfoot come back?
No, I was just excited to be here. Yeah, I know you're trying to get some videos up and talking about the things that are interesting to you and stuff. So I just wanted to call in, and I was glad that you let me be on, and I put you on the group there, my new group. So
awesome.
People,
thank you.
Hopefully they'll see it and check in.
I appreciate it. I mean, again, this is sort of a looser form of what I'm going to be doing. It's going to be a lot more organized, in about a week here when I get back. But for the meantime, just to keep that curiosity going, got to do a couple shows anyway.
Yeah, you got to keep it going. You got to keep the juices flowing. You know what I mean? Because if you missed that day or two, it's like hard to get back into it. Like for me, I didn't do the weekend, and now I'm like sitting here on your show, and I should be doing my own right now. You know what I mean?
I do.
So you gotta have that itch every day. I don't know if you're like me, but every day I wake up, I'm like, what am I gonna do for the next? What am I gonna work on? All day I worked on the stuff for the show, but it's a lot of fun. I love it. I love the adventure of it.
Yeah, and all the research you come across and the different things you learn that you didn't know about because you had to research something you went down the rabbit hole. It's so cool. I really do enjoy it too.
Like what you're talking about there with that guy who found all of the symbols or whatever. That sounds so interesting. So aliens gave him those symbols, and then what's the whole story?
He thought it was angels. In fact, Metatron, I think, was the big one there that would appear in front of him at night. Now, in a very cryptic fashion, they would give him a symbol. I don't know if it was something that was telepathically communicated. I imagine it was. But he see this symbol in his head, and they say, "Okay, go figure out what this is." And they did this, according to him, for quite some time. And that's how he got a lot of his knowledge. But it wasn't specifically just said, "Here, this is what everything means. This is what it is." They're like, "No, you got to find out yourself and do the research." And a lot of that was premier research into this sort of stuff because what he was looking up there was no reference. So he had to figure out what these symbols were on his own through experience.
Okay, so I have a question. When did this happen? What year?
This was in, I think it's been a while since I've read his story, but I believe it was between the late 1970s and to mid 1980s. And then he started forming the classes, and I think it was, maybe 87.
Okay. And what was his background prior to all this?
He was a chemist.
Discovery.
He was a chemist. He was a scholar.
Really?
That's
it?
Yeah, he was married, and he was just a normal guy. Now, what he believed was that he had a walk-in, which, for those of you who are not familiar with walk-ins, or at least the phenomenon of such, essentially this is a higher energy or higher energetic vibration of yourself, part of your higher self, that literally walks into the body and is anchored there. And people who experience these things talk about accelerated consciousness and awareness. They're able to know the answers to certain things without having researched them. Very interesting phenomenon, walk-in spirits, but this is what he said. And a lot of his information was coming down that pipeline from a higher vibration that was connected to him in some way, shape, or form.
So, oh, wow. So being a chemist, he was most likely, more on the scientific side of things, and probably not a believer of the stuff that can't be proved without scientific methods. So for this to happen, it's interesting. I'd like to read his story.
It's an incredible 2 books, and I mean, there's not enough time, in the world really to go through all of the details that he has, but I mean, I'm going to tell you guys something a little bit that's very interesting to me, and obviously you'll understand why. But you talk about everything from the chakras, and then how he relates, vibration and the chakra. Sorry, I'm going to put you up here for a minute. How these this is terrible. I really got to get the videos going here. How the chakras relate to vibration, and how. And how you can define these on a keyboard or a piano or something, and you can get into it that way. The relationships, you can see the scientific background he's had, and of course he's doing all this analyzing of these different symbols and how they relate. One of the coolest things that I took away from this book, all right, there's 2 major spirals that a lot of people talk about, and the first is the Fibonacci spiral, and the second is the golden mean spiral. Now, what he was proposing, and I don't know if this was his theory or if this is more scientifically based, but the golden mean spiral what he was saying doesn't technically appear in nature, because it's perfect. It goes on all the way up, all the way down, forever and ever. It continues mathematically. So there's no beginning and no end. Now, that's reflective of the infinite. Okay. What nature did was it built off the golden mean spiral and created the Fibonacci spiral, which is very, very similar, except it has a beginning and an end, just like life has a beginning and an end. And the infinite, is supposedly infinite. So no beginning and end. So, he goes into this kind of stuff and the math that goes behind it. It's really interesting to see. He gives examples of it in nature and everything. So really, really cool guy, Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Does he put it into layman's terms, though, too? Because he is a chemist, so he's probably real scientific. I don't know.
Well, I think because he was doing these classes and he was speaking to laymen, the way he wrote the book was really done very clearly, and I could understand it even at that time. And keep in mind, back then, I was a teenager, getting into this stuff. And, again, there wasn't a lot of places I could turn to research. I mean, of course, you could go to the library, but that, was very time taxing. And today it's very easy to just hop on a search engine and start somewhere, but we didn't have that back then. So I did a lot of talking about this for years, actually. One of the bigger drives he had.
What are these symbols?
Sorry?
All right, sorry. What do these symbols represent? Is it just those symbols you'd show with the triangles? Is that the whole thing, or?
So this particular symbol, the flower of life symbol that I showed before, all right, encompasses all of those geometries in one way, shape, or form. All right, all right, obviously we have the circle there, okay, and there's reasons for that, but this double line here, it relates to the zygote and the way that the eggs are formed in the womb, and how life begins on a molecular level. I honestly don't have all the time to go into that exactly, but kind of suffice to know that this is part of it. But the measurements, just the distance between each point and how it's created, is in the way that they think life started. So, for example, you have a circle here, all right, and then you move to the outer edge of this circle and you create another circle. And now you have two overlapping circles. This creates what's known as a viscous pipe. Viscous piscus. Okay, I'm really bad with this one. All right, sorry, but essentially, this is where the two. Okay, think of a Venn diagram. Okay, sorry, really bad description here. Venn diagram where you have two overlapping circles. That point where they overlap. Okay, if you were to turn it, it's the shape of your eye, right? Okay, so in the first two moves, okay, you create the circle and you go to create another circle. It's actually three moves because you're moving out to the side of the surface, creating that second one. You now have this area that's a new space, a new dimension that's created, which, I mean, that shape, it relates to light. Obviously, the eye, how it's taking in light. This particular shape is found in many different things. Think of life, what I mean, where life comes from. The shape is there, right? Not to get too descriptive here, but, essentially, it's a very, very important piece of the geometry. But you continue to go forth and you're creating this thing. And as you're creating it, you're understanding more and more how this relates. I mean, when you get to, was it 8 circles? I think it's talking about the clusters of eggs, in zygote form that form in some animals and how that works. And you add one here. It's just amazing how it all connects. And, I just kind of wanted to bring up the subject on tonight's show. And then I'm going to zero in on certain things that he talks about because it's extensive. Now, again, I said there's 2 books. I don't have the first one right now. I lent it to somebody years ago. I just got to pick up another copy. But the first one delves more into the history of how he got this information, how he obtained it, and the adventures that he went through. And it talks about ancient races and Sumerians and Lemurians, and goes over Atlantis and how those things worked, what his belief was. I mean, one of these nights we're definitely going to talk about Atlantis because in my view, in my research, which started with this, is that Atlantis was not just a physical place; it was also an interdimensional space, and these 2 realities, 3 realities, however many realities, coincided with each other, and they lived harmoniously at that time. So you had the ability of lots of different species coming in, from all over the planet. And I guess Atlantis was very special because they had these healing temples. And you can listen to Edgar Casey or even Dolores Cannon talk about these healing temples that they had and how beings from all over this universe used to come to Atlantis just to sit and do whatever they did in these healing temples.
Huh.
No.
Wow. And that's all destroyed now, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's, as far as we know, it's all gone. But this might explain some of the reasons we have places like the Bermuda Triangle. I mean, though I really don't know. There's some credible ideas of where Atlantis lies, and I mean, I'll save that whole thing for a next show. But people have cropped up all over the place with thinking they found it here or there or this place. Honestly, you guys are still finding old civilizations that may or may not have been around that same time, because Atlantis wasn't the only one. It was just one of the biggest ones. I mean, prior to Atlantis, you had Lemuria, which actually suffered a very similar fate to Atlantis.
Oh, wow.
So Atlantis itself was divided into, if you figure the right and left hemisphere of the brain, you have scientific side, you have creative side, you have a masculine, feminine quality. Essentially, you had the duality living on that island or land, because I don't know if it was actually an island or not, but we'll say land. And the significance of this is that those who had more of a left-brained approach at viewing the world were kind of congregated on one side of the island, versus the others who would be on the other side. Although they, again, intermingled and went their own way and what have you, they didn't have any issues internally. Now, I mentioned that there were a lot of species there, and one of the most prominent species was the Greys, or were the Greys, I should say. And their role in this is incredibly significant because the way the story goes is that these guys they saw a comet coming towards the Earth, and both sides were able to see this in various ways and realize that it was going to hit the Earth. Now, they weren't 100% sure where exactly it was going to hit, but they knew it would definitely collide with the planet. Now, suffice to say, too, that most of the right-brained individuals at the time were actually what you would consider more human-esque people or human-like forms. God, I'm really tripping over my tongue here tonight, guys. I'm sorry. But anyway, moving forward, they decided that the right brain folks decided that they were going to allow this thing to hit the planet because it was the course of nature, and whatever needed to happen was probably natural, and you ought to just let it happen. Don't get involved. We talk about that concept a lot even today. Left side thought, nope, we're going to blow it out of the sky. We're going to get rid of it because you know what? We don't want to die if it hits us. And a lot of those were the Greys, as I mentioned. So somehow or other, the story goes that the right-brained individuals were able to convince the left-brained folks, and I'm generalizing with that, but you know what I'm saying at least, to allow this thing to hit the planet. Okay. Unfortunately, when it actually did, it took out like half the island on that side where the settlement of the Greys were, and that's where the bad blood began. From what I understand, that's where it all started. So, what happens then? They get really upset, and they needed to conduct experiments of their own and things that they knew they shouldn't have been doing. That would create unstable electromagnetic fields and unstable Merkabas. Now, the interesting thing is that you have a Merkaba naturally. Again, it's in your arc field. The geometry is natural to you. You can also create a false one using electricity to propel that. But in doing that, you lose one of the most important aspects about the Merkaba, which is the intuition. Or the love that's behind it, the intention in creating it. And unfortunately, we've been talking about something like Philadelphia experiment, where I think that's what they were doing, essentially creating a synthetic Merkaba that crashed because they just didn't have the power to get it over initially, and they didn't do what they wanted to do. Now, again, doing any of this takes an incredible amount of power, incredible amounts of energy. So to know that you have that within you is incredible to think about. Versus how much power they use in Montauk or something. We
have that much power in us. How much power is in us? What do you mean?
Well, with the Merkaba, if you can create a synthetic one and make a battleship disappear from radar, and then entirely.
Oh yeah.
What could you do with one that's natural to your body and your auric field?
Oh, so you could teleport and stuff.
That was the idea. Yeah, that was the idea. At least with the way he was talking about it. And again, most people who are doing this, they weren't using for that purpose in the modern day. It takes a lot of discipline to get there. But I don't doubt for a moment that, some of these monks that are out there really do understand how to use this. And, some of them can float or do the little flying bit that you see once in a while. Those that aren't hoaxes, well, there's something there. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to have that sort of mind over matter control.
Does this have anything to do with astral travel and all that stuff then? If you is that part of it, or is that something totally different?
I'm going to say that
you're moving around, in a sense, you're moving, teleporting to wherever you want, right?
I'm going to say that they're probably more than likely connected. One of the interesting things about the Merkaba is that it actually displaces your physical being as well. With astral travel, usually it's an energy that's popping out of you some way, shape, or form, and you have that awareness that you're outside your body, but then you always return. Or that's the idea, you return.
Wow.
Now, just to consider, what's that?
I had that happen once. I was scared, but I wasn't scared during it, and it was only for a second.
That's what happens.
I'm serious. For 1 second, I was outside of the Earth, in space, and I could see the whole. I was so close to it. I can't describe it, but it was for 1 second, and it was amazing. and then I was right back to my bed.
That's interesting. I mean, I've tried to work with that. I mean, and a lot of people do slip in and out of it this way. A lot of people do discover it by accident because when you go into a dream state, there's an aspect of that there. It's been said that when somebody's sleeping normally, I think it's an arm's length above the body, you'll see, if you have the intuitive ability to do it, you actually see this energetic field floating above it, and that's you in the dream state. Now, someone who's able to see this can actually see that energetic field move off and return, always connected by this thin gossamer like thread that's apparently very light and shiny, connects you right back to the body just below the belly button. And that's your entry point and your exit point.
Huh.
Mhm. Which is interesting because that's a very important part. All right, that little area underneath your belly button, the first cells that you get, I think the first 8 cells that you get in life, continue growing from there. Eventually, that center area, because you grow outwards, believe it or not. Again, these are his theories too, that I'm presenting here, and you grow outward, and eventually those cells die. But this is such a very central area. They call it the Dantian in Tai Chi. It's the center of energy in your body. It's your center of gravity. So it only makes sense that maybe that's where your spirit enters and exits too.
Oh, yeah. That's true, yeah.
Now, I mean, just to kind of make it a little stranger too, I hate to reference this guy, but I do think some of his stuff had some legitimate thought to it. Carlos Castaneda, with his experiences with Don Juan, he would ask, some very common questions that people have. How would the yogi or how would the man of knowledge deal with certain things? And one of the questions he asked was, the unruly child. Now, get ready for this one because I'm leading up to why I'm telling the story. But beforehand, it's kind of interesting. So this is the way that Castaneda described it. What you need to do, according to Don Juan, is you go and you find a guy who looks like he's just gotten out of prison. Very unkempt, maybe big, burly, scary, intimidating looking person. All right. You're going to pay this guy to kind of follow you throughout the day. Now, keep in mind, this is different time period, and I'm sure just the initial thing I'm telling you wouldn't be a possibility today. All right. You're going to have this guy follow you, but not be seen, so that when the child starts to act out, this guy jumps out of the shadows and grabs the kid and just scares the bejesus out of him and then runs away. Okay. This happens, the course of this is like 2 or 3 times to get it to sink in. Like as soon as the kid starts acting up, this guy jumps out, roar, and then he runs away. Now, what you do after the second or third time of this, and the kid's really starting to get it, is you then take him down to a place of funeral, and you go up to a dead body of somebody who's recently been deceased, and you have that child touch anywhere they want to on the body except the stomach. You cannot touch the belly. Something energetically, sucks. I don't know. I mean, this is what he was saying. But again, there's the allusion to that area being important, or exceptional. And this is, who knows how much of Castaneda was accurate. But I mean, he did have some interesting ideas in lucid dreaming. So he was doing something. I just don't think it was with any Indians.
So what does touching the body do for the child now? Now he's not going to be unruly anymore?
So there's supposed to be an energetic connection made at the moment he touches the dead body, and it's really using death as an advisor. So he's supposed to understand through all these scares that once he touches the body, it's supposed to be a very sobering moment, and probably the child's first brush with death, especially so close. But I think that's the idea behind touching the body. Yeah. I don't think you could do that today.
It's very hard to do any of it. Yeah, you couldn't do that in any circumstance. It's so hard to do in any circumstance.
You would be in jail so fast. As soon as that guy jumped out, cops would be called. Are you kidding me? No way. But it's interesting prospect.
People on YouTube, you'd be videotaping it and trying to beat you up.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, And you might deserve it at that point. I mean, that's a hell of a thing to do to a kid. I couldn't imagine, doing to the doing to my kids. Hell no. We'll just have a timeout instead.
After one time of a guy jumping out of a bush and scaring the hell out of him, I think the kid's gonna learn like his lesson. I don't think you have to bring him to a funeral. I don't know. That's weird. I don't know.
Well, that
I have to read the whole thing.
That last part was supposed to solidify. I mean, the kid would know he's safe, but it was that like sobering moment where it all came together. Again, there's a lot of energy that must be involved there to do something like that. And personally, I've never done it, so I mean, I don't know. I don't like touching dead bodies. I don't know about you. You go to some funerals, your grandmother passes away, and somebody's over there. It's like, oh, like rubbing your face. Oh my god, I can't believe you're gone. But it was like I mean, they're not there anymore, man. Like I don't know why you're touching them. They're not there. I mean, I get it's a human thing. People grieve differently, but I don't want to touch it.
No, I never have. I've been to plenty of them.
I mean, I've done it.
Oh
no! I've touched a hand or something just to see what it was like. Of course, it was cold and stiff. I didn't like it. But I grew up around so much death when I was a kid. Family members for whatever reason were just dropping here and there for various reasons,
left and right.
It became a common occurrence to see cousins and stuff at funerals, and we'd always joke about, well, see you next time. And sure enough, I mean, for a while, that's what we did. So it was actually commonplace. I got used to that kind of death, younger, to say. So, folks, we're doing a mixed bag of stuff here. Started with the Ancient Secret of Flower of Life by Drunvalo Melchizedek, kind of going over some of his theories and playing around with that. I'm going to share something with you in just a moment that's a little provocative, but very interesting. And if you'd like to do some research and at some point contribute to this topic, that would be awesome because I know it's out there. I just haven't really done it myself, but it's interesting. So sexual energy is supposed to be the creative energy, the creative energy of the earth. I'm sorry, of the universe. This is what begins life and carries it through sexual energy. Use it through creation, use it through creativity, use it obviously, birthing of lives and stuff like that. There's so many different uses, fundamental uses, all right, for this, and why it's there. It makes so much sense. Now, one of the things he was talking about is that when either sex has an orgasm, the energy will start where you think it starts, and it goes all the way up. And some people talk about this, I feel it in my chest, and get to the throat, and then they make noise, and then poof, goes out the top of the head, literally never to be seen again. And I guess the Taoists that called this an orgasm, little death. That they have a word for that. It's called little death, because their belief, and one of the reasons that they're celibate, is that once you lose that energy, you just never get it back, and you need that energy to live a whole full life and be creative and connected and balanced. So he was proposing, Drunvalo was proposing this method where once you get the orgasm coming up, and just before it goes up the top of the head and it hits the throat, with all your consciousness, you want to visualize this energy going at a right angle out the back of your throat and come up around over your head and come to a point and then connect back into your throat in the front. Now, what this does is actually creates the Ankh symbol. If you think about it, okay? It creates the Ankh symbol. And this is from Egypt that he got this particular method of doing this, according to him. It's a very interesting idea, and you're supposed to lock that energy in. What happens is it now recycles, and you continue to have that same orgasm and use of that energy, but you never lose it. Interesting to think about, man. I mean, because of course you're expending energy every day you're out doing something, and when you're doing something sexual, obviously you're losing a lot of it. And at the end of it, you can feel that. You know what I mean? You're tired. You want to take a nap. You want to go make a sandwich. Whatever it is. But there's a reason for that, and you're losing a lot of it. You know what I mean? and just having the orgasm.
Yeah.
And again, like what is it, the tantric sex and stuff, they practice the preservation of that energy. They don't want you to have the orgasm. They just want you to keep it in you. You know, and there's a whole discipline to that. But it sort of echoes what he's saying, or at least mirrors in a lot of ways what he's saying.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me.
Very interesting.
No.
It is, yeah.
But, you know, I mean, this is, again, this guy has all the stuff in these books, and these books have been out for a very long time. I wanted to show you something else here. I kind of kitty cornered here. Hold on 1 second. Find what I... Yeah, Metatron's cube's in this as well. Okay, yeah, here's the... here is the Golden Mean Spiral, which the Great Pyramid and surrounding pyramids actually use this math. Okay, this sucks because, you know, I know it's backwards and all this crap, but listen, we're gonna get there. Okay, promise, we're gonna get there.
Just throw a link for it in the description for the people after the show.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Most of what I'm talking about, I'll see if I can pull something up for you. Hey, Jilly, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. That's awesome. Hey, listen, I mean, you know what's funny, Jilly? I've tried to catch your show with Becca few times, and I only get notified as soon as you guys are done going live. So I like pop in. I'm like, all right, let's go. And you know, I watch some of it, but I can't catch you live for some reason. I will get you at some point. I don't know if it's the notices on my phone or what have you, but I have been checking out your cast. Yeah. So very briefly, like what we've been kind of talking about this evening, loosely here and there, was this guy, Drunvalo Melchizedek. He put out this book, The Ancient Secret of Flower of Life, and he did courses. Oh, look at this! There he is. He did courses for this before he published these books back in the 90s, mid to late 90s. And, you know, we're talking about the sacred geometry that goes behind it. We're talking about Merkaba meditations. We're talking about Atlantis. I mean, we just haven't gotten to Venus yet, but I mean, I guess we're getting there. But yeah, I mean, we're sort of all over the place with this right now. And, yeah, any comments or considerations for topics, you are more than happy to indulge. Rick, you still there? I think we might have lost Rick. I hear him there.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Might be eating a bag of chips. I'm not sure.
No, I was gonna comment to say hi to Jilly in the chat room. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, you should. She's there. There it is.
Hey, well, if I'm allowed to do that, let me just grab it. There it is. I'm just waiting for the okay.
Oh,
Rick,
my God.
Jilly's Jilly from England Paranormal says, hey, Rick, can't find you. You can find me on Rick's Realm. Just click my little name there.
Ah, yes. Sorry, I didn't even see that.
There. Hello.
Rick's Realm.
No, that's all right. I just saw that. Yeah, I didn't want to. I changed the name. I was Random Rick last show you watched, but we went through a name change, so you'll find it all there. But thank you.
Hey, at least it wasn't too off the mark. It's not a bad name. I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm going to open this book real quick, and I think we'll dive into another topic. We're approaching the top of the hour, folks. We're going on an hour. I don't know how much longer we'll stick around for this broadcast, but I did want to get into this. Let's talk about grounding. All right, and how that goes. So when you meditate, your energy is being shifted. You're doing all sorts of things. It's very easy to go off into the ethers and play. And when you come back, sometimes not all of you feels there. You feel a little bit what we call ungrounded and a little, you know, maybe light-footed or just like me right now, having trouble focusing or concentrating. I must be tired. That must be what it is. But some of the things that you can do to ground yourself: 1, drink water. Seems fairly simple. 2, what you want to do if you can get outside is put your fingers, both hands, onto the ground as such. Okay, now you're just making the connection with your feet and your hands on the ground. That can help ground you. And how about hugging a tree? Yeah, there really was something to what
Oh
those
yeah.
hippies were doing. Yeah, you hug a
Yeah.
tree, you instantly get connected to that grounding that's already in the earth. It's like a stake being in the earth, and you're just grabbing onto it. Grounding rod, literally huge. Oh, Jilly has
Yeah.
crystals. I'd love to see what you've got. I've got quite a few myself, and would love to talk to you about it. I didn't see the Facebook group invitation. I'll look again because I wish I didn't miss that. But I'll look again after the show here. Crystals. Oh man, there's another thing we could talk about with geometry and stuff, man. Oh man, that's wow, we could really get into that.
Oh, it's DarkHour Paranormal. It's everything paranormal. You don't need a topic.
Yeah, well, the organization will
open
come
forum.
next week.
It's like the open forum. Call in vampires. Call in. West of the Rockies.
I did.
Vampires only.
Yes, thank you, Joey. I would love that. I would love that.
I like your format.
Well, we learn from the best
Come in and
here.
talk about whatever. I was joking.
No, I mean,
I'm
kind
gonna
of
take
are.
a quick pause here while I just run downstairs real quick. I'm gonna still be listening in though. So.
All right, I think I'm gonna stick around for another 10 minutes here, and then we're gonna call the night. But this has been very interesting. No, as you do that, I'm gonna talk about something here. So he brought something.
I may do a mic testing show after yours. I don't know. I'll let you know. Go ahead.
That's fine. You let me know.
I'll be right back.
All right. There was a time in my life that I got really interested in, vampires and zombies and stuff like that, like a lot of people have. And I tried using some of this research to find some evidence of either of them ever existing, even in history, or is it a misnomer? Are we calling it something else? I'll be honest with you. In terms of zombies, nope, I didn't find anything. Nothing credible, nothing more than legend. Vampires, on the other hand, I did find a couple things on. But to answer your question, Jilly, right now I've only been on here a couple times. This is the second show, and the reason for that is I'm off in a different state with my kids through this whole coronavirus thing, and we're kind of hunkered down in my parents' house. They're out of town. They've been in a different state as well for quite some time, nobody being able to move. But we're going to be going back up to Massachusetts on the end of this week, and I'll be on here at least every other night, if not every night, doing a show. So I do hope to see you. Now, back on the topic of vampires, can't give you specific details here. I'm just going to kind of anecdotally give you my experience with the research. You want to look back to times where, this sort of legend was rampant and people believed it, and digging up corpses and sticking stakes through their hearts. I believe there was actually a heart with a hole, or at least the hole. It might have been the stake that was actually through it inside a box that was left over from that time period so many years ago. So people did believe this stuff. Ooh, you guys are going to Highgate Cemetery? I am just tripping all over my words tonight. My God. Becky and I are going to Highgate Cemetery, London. Vampire grave. Ah. Hey, listen, I'd like to believe that that's something real and that there's some sort of reanimation that can occur after your death. But, other than looking at what Anne Rice has created, I don't really see how it would fit into the scope of things. I don't see how that would be any sort of natural course of existence. I mean, I'm no god, of course, but it doesn't seem like it would make sense to me. Oh, Lost Boys was great. I'll be honest with you, though, I did enjoy Anne Rice's work. Obviously, I saw the movie Interview with a Vampire. Excellent flick, especially for its time. But then I read all of her books and realized that this woman had literally created her own version of history to include her vampire characters. Fantastic read. Even to this day, when she's denounced it, renounced it. I don't know where she stands now, but I don't think she's doing any more vampire books, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, I'd like to believe that this stuff is possible. But again, I don't see how a being like that would fit into a natural category. Now, I guess you could say that about some of the other cryptids that are seen, but keep in mind a lot of this is based on perspective and what people think they've seen, throughout history here. Bigfoot is a totally different phenomenon, or maybe even Champ from Lake Champlain, or Nessie, Loch Ness. To me, they have a physical reason for existing. Bigfoot could just be a creature that we're not seeing, and he's out there undiscovered, or obviously keeping away from us entirely. So many people have seen him. Talked about that a little bit. But he could be there. He lives in a natural environment. For something preternatural like a vampire to exist and rise out of the grave to drink blood to feed. Of course, you look at some animals, insects will do that. But for one to already have passed on the body to not work anymore, why would one stay in the body? Even if you could do something like that, why would you do it? I mean, you got to get back into the ground in a coffin, out of the sunlight, otherwise you burn up, for whatever the legend's going to be. Yes, I did check out your Shadow Man. That was fascinating. I have a lot to say about those kind of things, but I did see that. And I think I also saw you guys doing, it wasn't a seance of sort, but I think you were calling something, you get candles spread out, and you're getting to do that on one of the shows. Yeah, I like what I've seen so far. I continue to watch you guys' material. I don't know honestly, I don't know if it was live. I don't think it was. I must have seen it, after the fact. I really don't know. I think I must have been after the fact. I'll be honest with you, because as I said, I've been having trouble seeing you guys' stuff live. But I've just went to check it out, not waited for notices at times, and I'm able to see what you guys are doing. But I don't know that it's live. So believe me, I'll figure that out. I will figure that out within the next week here. I'll make it a goal because it's something I got to learn anyway. So, yeah. I mean, what people have done with zombies today is crazy. Same sort of idea. What would this energy be? To be so powerful to, reanimate a corpse. Why would you do it? I don't know. All things to think about when you're looking at the esoteric and paranormal. Well, I think Rick has gone down to refresh his drink and maybe have a snack. I think I'm going to wind down here in another couple moments. I wanted to have him back just to say goodbye. Oh, God, I hope you guys don't hear that. Oh, jeez. What's going on here? I'm going to try to leave you with something interesting to kind of contemplate or think about. And I'm going to take this again from Drunvalo's book. Now, here's something cool. All right. I want to show you folks real quick.
Excuse me. Can we play slime?
Not right now, buddy. Go, please. In the text here. In the text here that I'm just showing you. Okay. And you have a picture of the USS Eldridge up here. You've got the mountains out in Dulce, New Mexico in the background. It's kind of an odd collage, but it's there. He, as early as this was, he was talking about the Philadelphia experiment. He was talking about Montauk. He was talking about Dulce Wars. And this is back in the 90s when Phil Schneider was just getting out there doing this stuff and talking about his experiences. This guy had it published in his book. Oh, thank you very much, Chili. I appreciate you. I do. Thank you so much. We have a lot of fun doing this stuff here, and I love making the connections and the knowledge that you garner by just doing the research and then getting into the field is paramount. It's awesome. You can't beat it. I'd rather do this than sit down at a desk and learn. Oh God, I can't even say that I wouldn't want to learn advanced arithmetic because you can use it for this stuff. But you know what I'm saying. You're learning stuff you don't really want to learn about. I don't know. But you guys are awesome, and I do appreciate your support. And I'm definitely getting on your guys' show one of these days, and we're gonna have a blast. We're gonna talk about whatever we can think of or whatever you want to introduce. But Rick, I just wanted to wait for you to come back here. We're now approaching an hour in, and I think I'm going to cut it for now.
Okay.
Kids are asking to play with slime, apparently. You missed that. You'll see it on the replay. Don't worry. At least my kids are polite, so, you know, they barge in here screaming. But, get a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. What are you going to do? All right, guys.
That's the beauty of live broadcasting.
Yeah, you better believe it, man. I love it, too. All right. So
you're
we're...
not going to see that on a regular show. Kids walking out of the studio.
Oh, no, God, no. I mean, and, you know, if we weren't in lockdown of some sort still, or we were, you know, under the stay-at-home advisory, you know, I'd be doing this from a studio, for God's sake. I mean, it's coming. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So, all right, folks, thank you very much for joining tonight. Again, my name is Michael Roser. I'm the host of Dark Hour Paranormal. We enjoyed your presence and your contributions. I'm sorry, Jilly. I wanted to do a shorter show tonight just because I wanted to introduce some of these topics and get it going. But I'll tell you what. We will do another show tomorrow night just for you. Okay? If you want, throw me a topic or two. You can think about it, you know, between now and, you know, like 5 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. Shoot it to me, and I'll do a show on whatever you give me. How's that sound? All right, cool. Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you. Yeah, just I'll put my email in the chat here just in case you can't find me otherwise. Yeah, I have StreamYard, but I'm not using StreamYard right now at the moment.
We're working on getting them set up with that.
So, yeah, we're working on linking that together, but that'll happen towards the end of the week here, as I had mentioned. But all right, folks, thank you very much for joining. Rick, thanks for being here. And
thank you for having me.
Please, Remy, just let me finish this, okay? And I'll come.
Hungry.
Okay, I'll get you something to eat. Just give me a minute.
I can see the little head running around in the background there.
Oh God, you gotta love it, man. Jesus.
Oh, I love it. You should put him in a little alien or a ghost.
Don't tempt me.
Background.
Don't tempt me.
In the mirror, the window behind you, it's hilarious. You should do that.
Hey, listen, they're so good for this. I mean, they really haven't interrupted me in an hour. And the last show I did, they only came and hugged me, you know, a couple times and didn't really interrupt too much. So I'm happy that they're, you know, so well behaved. So, all right, guys.
I think they're just trying to get into your show and take over your show.
Yeah, well, they do. Of course they do. Wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah,
my dad was doing a show. I want to be on the show too, but you know, I can't do that right now. So, my God, bless you, Jilly. 5 grandkids, my God. And you're still standing. Oh, Jesus. That's impressive.
God bless.
All right, folks, thank you very much for joining us. I am going to officially wrap up now. And I wish you a great night, an inquisitive evening, and a phenomenal night's sleep. Hopefully to awake and have more knowledge than you did when you went to bed. Maybe you catch something in a dream, lucid dream tonight. Give it an astral projection a go. Make it interesting. But make sure you still sleep, because that's a big thing too. All right, folks. Have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow evening. I'm going to work out the time, whether it's 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever. I was going to coincide with Rick's show, if he decides to do one tomorrow night. Otherwise, I'm shooting for 8 o'clock, and I hope to see you guys here. Thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'm gonna have to hang up with you for a minute, Rick, because I gotta do the outro music. It's on the phone. I'll call you right back. All right.
They're half human, half fish.
I don't know how that happened. Hold on. Jesus Christ, I gotta get this together. Oh man. Oh yes, sorry. I'm gonna give that to you right now. All right, sorry. Give me 1 second here, Jilly. I'm picking up.
Good evening and welcome
I'm doing so bootlegged that I'm actually using music that I put on another show on another format just to make sure I have something on the intro and the outro. Sorry, it's going to be much better coming. All right, hit me up on that email. I'll be looking for you, and I will see you all tomorrow night.